Chapter 301, Guess how many extraordinary sprites I have. The leader of the Korean nation was currently in a dilemma. Should he send in the rest of his teammates? If he had known that Whale Island University was so fierce, he wouldn't have been so cocky just now. But why hadn't the Whale Island University sent in their ace earlier? They clearly had a young teenage sprite trainer who was fully capable of dominating over the rising star of the Korean nation. And yet they claimed to be talentless. It had been their scheme all along. After summoning the flaming spirit crow back and handing it to the team for treatment, Golden Flame gritted his teeth and said, I haven't lost yet. I still have sprites to fight. He recalled the performance of that ghost element sprite just now. It could absorb flames. Energy attacks probably wouldn't do anything to it. He himself didn't have a sprite stronger than the flaming spirit crow. But he had sprites that were good at defense and physical damage output. Go, Lava Giant! Amidst the distortion of space, a huge stone man about 5 to 6 meters tall, made of huge rocks, with magma flowing between the gaps, covered in flames, appeared with a boom. It stepped on the ground and roared. Roar! The battle continued, and the barrier opened again. At this point, the field had already been cleared, and the raging golden flames had already been extinguished. There were only some dents and charred marks on the firm ground. The two sprites faced each other from afar. The first thing Golden Flame did was to stretch out his hands, press his index finger and thumb against his temples, and groan. Sprite commandeering, same frequency. Above his head, deng 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 deng. A total of 6 degrees appeared. Instantly, the high-level sprite commandeering method, which belonged to the upgraded version of vision sharing, helped to connect his mind with his sprite. They were able to share vision, hearing, smell, sensual perception, and so on, achieving coordination in thoughts, consciousness, behavior, and so on. In high-end battles, same frequency was a skill that sprite trainers had to master. In the previous round, I was too careless. I didn't have the time to use same frequency, and the instructions weren't issued in time, but now. Even if you can absorb the flames on the lava giant, it still has a top-notch defense. Given the power of the ghost claw, it will be able to hold out for a long time. During this period, as long as I can catch the weakness of that ghost element sprite. Under the same frequency, his soul power was quickly consumed, but Golden Flames had already started to think about strategies at a rapid rate. The analysis and judgment of humans, together with the high hardware of sprites. In an instant, his thoughts became much clearer. He even taunted in a very calm manner. Are you worried that I might stall for time until your sprite commandeering, same frequency ends? Su Hao saw through the other party's worries in an instant. But it's just a mid-level lava giant, it's not worth it for me to stall for time. Su Hao wanted a quick and decisive victory. Attack! The Yama Ghost King floated forward and stopped dozens of meters away from the lava giant. Golden Flame was still busy taunting Su Hao. The lava giant also roared and threw out a few fireballs symbolically. When they flew in front of the Yama Ghost King, they suddenly disappeared. Shadow Energy Ball. Ayan placed its hands in front of its body. A small black dot appeared in its palms. At first, it was only the size of a rice grain. It expanded rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it became the size of a basketball. It was still expanding in size. Double, triple. Ayan's hands, which were placed in front of its body, raised. The dark energy ball above his head was already half a meter in diameter. The shadow energy dissipated into substantialized black smoke, which lingered around. Anyone who looked at it could feel the terrifying energy within. Why didn't it explode? Why was it still expanding? This wasn't energy science. Many people started getting anxious. The characteristics of the Yama Ghost King could increase the control of the shadow energy by a decent amount. Naturally, the others didn't know about this. At the moment, there were no records relating to the characteristics of the Shadow Lord in the Union, and Su Hao also hadn't published or written anything about it. Because of this, it was impossible for them to know anything about it. But under the same frequency state, Golden Flame's reaction was also very fast. Almost in an instant, the lava giant rushed out abruptly, flames burst on its huge fist. When it rushed in front of Yan and smashed its fist down. What? The shadow energy ball, which was already 70 to 80 centimeters in diameter, was thrown gently by Yama Ghost King like an ordinary balloon, spinning and flying into the sky. As for Yama Ghost King, it disappeared into the shadows on the ground. When it appeared again, it was already behind the lava giant. It floated up again and caught the huge shadow energy ball in mid-air. Black smoke lingered, spiritual force was injected, and the shadow energy ball continued to expand. The Yama Ghost King holding the huge black ball looked like a demonic god. Attacking energy ball. Golden Flame's eyes widened as he wanted to roar out loud. Without any instructions, the lava giant in the same frequency state tried to turn around, but halfway through, its body suddenly froze. Under the sunlight, the shadow cast by the huge body had unknowingly become hostile. Like a demon waving its claws and teeth, the shadow grabbed onto the lava giant as it tried to turn around. Just now, when that ghost element sprite used the shadow to teleport itself, its own shadow had merged with the shadow of the lava giant. Without the shadow trap of the Yama Ghost King, it couldn't trap the lava giant for long. In less than 2 seconds, the raging black shadow was torn apart. The lava giant finally turned around. At the same time, in mid-air, the shadow energy ball raised by the Yama Ghost King was already 3 to 4 meters in diameter, larger than its entire body. Countless black mist lingered. Under the influence of the terrifying energy, even space was vaguely distorted, as if black lightning had appeared. The fully formed ultimate super shadow energy ball sure kill technique was suddenly thrown down by Yan. It smashed towards the lava giant, which had just broken free from its restraints and was standing at a close distance with a cumbersome body and couldn't dodge. Boom! Energy shock. Countless dark shadow energy shrouded the whole arena like a black screen. Black smoke rose, and the light screen of the barrier flickered, making sizzling sounds. The field seemed to have turned into a huge black box, shaking continuously. Countless people outside the arena held their breaths and widened their eyes. After what seemed like a long time, or had it just been a few seconds, the hazy shadow energy dissipated into the air bit by bit. On the field, Yama Ghost King floated in midair and looked down coldly. The others could only see that the hard ground, which was able to withstand an all-out attack from an extraordinary high level, was actually caved in and had cracked. In the pit, a lava giant with broken rocks and black gas all over its body was lying on its back as its body was filled with dark shadow and black smoke, motionless, like a cooked dark meal. Crafted by Yama Ghost King. Everyone fell silent. On the sprite commandeering opposite, Golden Flame's whole body trembled. Due to his same frequency state, he seemed as if he had also faced the impact head-on. Even after the connection was severed, his whole body still shook. Feeling the countless gazes around him, Golden Flame's entire face burned even more. He closed his eyes, tilted his head, and fainted. What does one do when one is faced with an unwanted situation? Apparently, Golden Flame's answer to this question is to pretend to fall unconscious. Those who could see through his act didn't bother to expose him either. However, Heavenly King Wei took full advantage of the opportunity as he revealed a refined smile and he looked over at the Korean team. Contestant Golden Flame seems to have lost. Then, shouldn't one of you? In the spectator seats, the instructors and students felt refreshed, as if they had been hydrated by iced drinks on a hot day. Everyone all looked towards the Korean team. It was their fault to have acted so arrogantly. One of the nameless Heavenly King of the Korean nation was now faced with the same dilemma again. At this moment, a female sprite trainer leaned forward and whispered into his ear. The Heavenly King leader's eyes lit up. She's our next contestant, but it's not early. We will have to leave after another round. He didn't dare to act too arrogant this time. If they won, they would leave while they were still ahead. If they lost, they wouldn't have to continue to suffer from the humiliation. But no matter what the results were, the Heavenly King had already made up his mind to return tomorrow, no, tonight. Dragon Nation was too dangerous. He couldn't stay any longer. He looked at the strongest sprite trainer in the team apart from Golden Flame. Kim Jong-yeon, I'm counting on you. He made a gesture which seemed to have meant if you're going to lose, at least don't embarrass us. Then, he looked at Heavenly King Wei. You can also change your contestants. He desperately hoped for them to send someone weaker. Can you still fight? Heavenly King Wei looked at Su Hao, who had returned to the audience seats. Should I send a medical team over? The Korean Heavenly King's face twitched. When he heard no need, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. The two sprite trainers went on stage again. In the Korean nation, a sprite trainer with a curvy figure and a short skirt with the surname Kim summoned her sprite. An ice emperor tooth. It looked like a magnified white seal and was the size of a car. It had a pair of long, narrow, and sharp fangs. As soon as it appeared, frost appeared, and the ice underneath spread. It was the cold air it exuded that affected its surroundings. But this ice emperor tooth is probably only on par with the lava giant. What is she planning? Is it going to be a seduction technique? She's underestimating me. At the very least, they had to form a team. But the next moment, Kim Jong-yeon used sprite commandeering, showing off to Su Hao. Sprite commandeering, synergy. After Kim Jong-yeon's closed palm completed 7 graduations, a misty white halo appeared on Ice Emperor Tooth. In an instant, the surrounding ice mist became thicker. Ice Emperor Tooth's aura was also rising steadily. Sprite commandeering, synergy, can borrow part of its power from other sprites it contracted and integrated into designated sprites, allowing its strength to increase sharply in a short period of time. It was a high-level, rare, and difficult to learn sprite commandeering. Moreover, in sparring matches, it was basically tacitly agreed that similar sprite commandeering methods would be banned. When power that didn't belong to itself was fused into its body, Ice Emperor Tooth couldn't restrain its rising aura as its strength increased. White frost pervaded the air, enveloping the arena dozens of meters around them. Formless air waves spread. From the momentum of its rise, Su Hao judged, on her team, apart from her, there are probably 3 more extraordinary levels, and even more elite levels. Young sprite trainers had insufficient heritage, and they also had fewer contracted sprites. Usually, only rich middle-aged men like Senior Wu could contract a bunch of sprites. No wonder why the other party was so confident. She probably felt that Su Hao didn't have many extraordinary levels, so with sprite commandeering, synergy, she could. Apart from being handsome, Su Hao also looked especially young among the group of old aunties and uncles. He closed his hands and muttered, "Sprite commandeering, synergy." Deng deng deng. The 7 graduations were completed in 2 seconds. With extremely fast hand motion, Su Hao used sprite commandeering. In the depths of his soul, at the core of the contract, figures seemed to appear one after another. Butterfly, dazed crow, dumb unicorn, big fat bear. Even Efu, who wasn't very useful, showed up. They all contributed their strength. White light dots flowed through the contract and fused with the Yama Ghost King. Instantly, circles of white light appeared on the black-robed Ayan's body. Its robe suddenly puffed up, raising waves of cold wind. Its shadow lengthened, and its aura immediately increased. Thick black smoke rushed into the sky like dark clouds. The Korean team was dumbfounded. Chapter 302, Impossible. On the huge battlefield, a black-robed figure floated in the air. Extremely dense black mist lingered around its body. Terrifying shadow energy rose upwards, making every sprite trainer who saw the scene in front of them involuntarily swallow their saliva. How many extraordinary sprites does he have? It wasn't just the Korean sprite trainers who were curious. Whale Island University's instructors and seniors were also curious. Maybe 3. A senior said with uncertainty, Junior Suhao's butterfly fairy is extraordinary, and the flaming spirit crow has also broken through to extraordinary. And this one in front of us, it's never appeared before. That should be 3, right? He didn't believe it himself. But it couldn't be in only 2 months. The thunder roaring and water cloud horse who were only elite level have also become extraordinary, right? Was breaking through to the extraordinary level really as easy as eating and drinking? The senior from his special training camp, whose ace card had been stuck at the elite level limit for more than a year, almost cried as he spoke. Why am I so lousy? Those who were more pessimistic and on the verge of tears were the Korean Heavenly King and the other sprite trainers and cheerleaders. But there wasn't anyone who was more pitiful than Kim Jong-yeon, who was facing the Yama Ghost King and her Ice Emperor Tooth on the field. Ice Emperor Tooth, Master, why is this happening? Cry. It looked at the demonic god-like Yama Ghost King in front of it and hurriedly set up layer after layer of strong ice defense in front of it. It roared fiercely, but it was weak inside. You. Don't come over, ah. In the sky, Ayan's terrifying talent allowed it to stabilize the dissipating energy in a short period of time. Its pale palm reached out from under its sleeve and waved lightly. Endless black smoke gathered, forming a huge, ghastly ghost claw. It didn't say anything. It just raised its head and gently waved its ghostly claws. Bang! Bang! Instantly, the hard ice in front of Ice Emperor Tooth shattered like tofu, and white ice flew everywhere, rolling all over the ground. On the other hand, Ayan, who maintained its huge ghost claw, seemed to be in no hurry. It just floated forward step by step. It took only a few seconds to tear down the ice that Ice Emperor Tooth had just cast with one claw, tearing it into pieces. Then, it brushed past Ice Emperor Tooth. Just the aftershock alone sent Ice Emperor Tooth, which was the size of a car, flying. Ayan raised its ghost claw and paused. In its mind, it heard the voice of its sprite trainer. Don't be anxious, don't be anxious. Its hard ice can teach you about your own power, let that cute Ice Emperor Tooth take a breath. Ayan sighed helplessly. It looked at Ice Emperor Tooth, whose eyes showed weakness, pity, and despair. It could only say silently, sorry. Another claw tore down. It tore down with another claw. It swiped down from a different angle. After pausing for a few seconds, it tore down again. Bang! 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 Several claws brushed past the Ice Emperor's teeth, as though the Yama Ghost King couldn't control its bloated energy. However, Ice Emperor Tooth no longer had any intention of resisting. It simply closed his eyes and tried to protect its head. It's just a little pain. Boom! The huge ghost claw surrounded by endless energy finally landed. Ice Emperor Tooth, which had now fainted, or at least pretended to have fainted, flipped its body and revealed its belly. It made Ayan's huge ghost claw stop in mid-air. Should I smash it or not? After a while, the thick black smoke had already dissipated. Ice Emperor Tooth, which had flipped its belly out, was carried to the waiting area for treatment. Its whole body was still trembling. In the audience, the Korean Heavenly King patted Kim Jong-yeon. Well done. I guess. At least she lasted for a while, right? The process wasn't really important. She was on the verge of tears, but that wasn't important either. After declining Whale Island University's enthusiastic invitation to stay, the Heavenly King of the Korean nation bade farewell and hurriedly left. At this point, deafening cheers were heard for the students around the battlefield. Well done! Heavenly King Wei said. Is that the sprite you contracted in Ghost City? Luck, it's all luck. Of course, I know that all of that was luck, but why does that smile of yours look like it's asking for a beating? Heavenly King Wei was puzzled. The other instructors and students from the special training camp also came over and praised and bragged. Su Hao didn't get carried away. Instructor Zhu Dun and Instructor Yang Diu, who lost to Golden Flame, were only hoping that someone from the Dragon Nation would qualify. There was still a huge way to go from obtaining the inheritance slot. There were many strong people in Dragon Nation. There were strong people from various high schools in Dragon Nation, top heirs cultivated by various sects, outstanding descendants of various sprite trainer families, strong people who grew up active in various war zones, such as the Command Department, the Exploration Department, and the Crime Bureau. Let alone all the other experts that came from all over the world. Su Hao was just an ordinary college student. He couldn't be too proud of himself. Or could he? Ha 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 ha. Outside the arena, many newbies were still asking, who is that strong and handsome guy? Is there such a young instructor in our school? What, that guy isn't an instructor, but the legendary Senior Su Hao. Senior Su Hao is so strong, so handsome, I love him. When Su Hao walked down from the audience seats, he saw a large group of classmates rushing over, shouting something. Senior, I love you. Junior, let's be together. Junior, Mommy loves you. The problem was that the last voice was a little rough. It was especially clear amidst the soft and sweet cries. With just a glance, he was surprised when he saw the owner of the voice, a 2-meter-tall man. The female juniors all gave him strange looks, followed by some pity, disappointment, sympathy, and understanding looks. Wait. What kind of story are you making up in your head? I'm not into that. After the Korean team left, the instructors and students stayed back to discuss for a while before dispersing. Everyone was busy, so they couldn't just stay there indefinitely. But it seemed that the protagonist of the battle, Ayan, or the Yama Ghostly Lord, had turned into a wisp of black smoke and entered Su Hao's shadow immediately after the battle ended. No one cared enough to look for it either. You should be the one taking credit, what are you being so shy for? In the battle just now, the Yama Ghostly Monarch's performance was remarkable, especially in the last battle. Ayan was able to learn to control Butterfly's energy after just a short period of time. It was as if a large amount of water had been poured in, widening the bucket itself. It gave Ayan a magical feeling. But only Ayan was able to use it this way due to its cheats-like growth rate. In the future, it might even surpass the Monarch bottleneck. Su Hao was vexed. He scratched his head. Well, the burden of sprite commandeering, synergy on my own body is also not insignificant, so I can't use it often. The most important thing now is to perfect Ayan's battle system before the Supernova Cup starts. Su Hao wasn't going to go and catch ghosts on his own, as he wanted nothing to do with ghost catching for the rest of his life. After finally managing to stay in the dormitory after much difficulty, he wasn't going to go out for a long trip again. Therefore, he went to the mission hall of the school and tried to grab attention by clapping his hands. I want to issue a ghost catching mission. I'm looking for elite to extraordinary level sprites. A deposit of 3,000 yuan? No, 3,000 yuan is too little. I'll give you 10,000 credits directly. There are only 2 requirements, I want a lot of them, and I want them fast. Chapter 303, Spell Persuasion. At the mission building, students came and went. Every day, many new missions appeared, and many old missions disappeared. Some weaker students who lacked credits often waited in the mission hall to snatch missions that were both easy and profitable. They stayed in front of the searchlight screen and read continuously. What the F***ck, there's a mission with astronomical rewards. What? Where is it? Why haven't I seen it? The first page, the very top. The many missions in the hall were arranged according to value when there weren't any emergency missions. Whichever mission had the highest value was ranked first. The mission that was ranked first had capitalized letters and had the words Ghost Catching Mission. Mission: capture wild sprites from elite to extraordinary level. Requirements: ghost element, living. Reward: according to the number and level captured, elite level 200 to 500/sprite, extraordinary level 2000 to 5000/sprite. Prize pool quota: 1000-2000 credits. The hall suddenly fell silent, and then came panting sounds. Under normal circumstances, a mission of dozens to hundreds of credits would take days to more than 10 days to complete. And in front of them was a mission where catching one sprite would fetch 200, which meant they could earn 2000 credits if they caught 10. Gulp. Zhang-san, let's cooperate and go to the ghost cave in the country. Wang Wu, the ghost catching team needs you. Come on. When Bai Hongzhen arrived at the mission hall, he was a little dumbfounded. He wondered if he was in the wrong place. He couldn't understand why his classmates kept shouting 50-50, 40-60, and which are the best tools for catching ghosts. With doubts, Bai Hongzhen came to the counter and submitted the mission. Then, he checked the mission list one by one. What he saw made his eyes widen. He was a descendant of the Bai family, which provided him with resources. He was financially slightly better off than ordinary students, but he still needed to work. Like everyone else, he saw the ghost catching mission. The mission charged based on the number of sprites caught. A rough calculation showed that it was much more cost-effective than other missions. As long as he caught enough, the reward would be bountiful. Which laboratory was so rich to issue this mission? Sprite contracting couldn't be done casually. Only large-scale laboratories could have use for elite-level and extraordinary-level wild sprites. But Bai Hongzhen was still a little confused. If the laboratory is conducting research, wouldn't they usually specify certain sprites? Among ghost element types, dream-eating demons and nightmare terrors are more common, but they also have less research value. However, there were only 2 requirements on the mission list. It required a ghost element sprite, and it also needed to be alive. Something seemed wrong. He shook his head and continued to look down at the mission issuer. Immediately, he patted his face and rubbed his eyes. He took 2 deep breaths and looked again. Publisher, Su Hao. Which Su Hao? He didn't think it was a coincidence. It was the same name. Has Su Hao already gotten so far? He's clearly a sprite trainer, but why is he doing research? His mission. Bai Hongzhen slammed the counter. I'll take it. Upon hearing Bai Hongzhen's loud voice, the nearby receptionist rolled her eyes. In the blink of an eye, 2 weeks passed. A lot had happened at school in the past 2 weeks. During this time, many newbie students went out to catch ghosts. Old and cunning students also teamed up to catch ghosts. Experts from the special training camp also went to catch ghosts alone. Even a certain instructor also went out of his way to catch a few extraordinary level ghosts. Throughout all of this, the mission issuer, Su Hao, kept on with his usual training with Ayan and Fu. From time to time, he would video call Dazed Crow, Dumb Unicorn, and Big Fat Bear. It was only until the mission center informed Su Hao that his mission had been completed did Su Hao finally go to pick up his ghost element sprites. Su Hao followed the staff member to the designated location. He arrived at a completely sealed building with no windows and only a closed main door. The building's materials were special, and there was an enchantment inside, which could prevent ghost element sprites from passing through or destroying the walls. The staff member opened the door and entered, but there was still another door inside. Mr. Su Hao, I'll bring you here. There are dozens of ghost element sprites behind the door, you. No problem, thanks. The staff member was aware that the handsome young man in front of him was very strong, so he wasn't worried. He just said, if there are any problems, you can contact me through the wristband. There are also alarm buttons on every floor of the building. Then, he turned and left. Buzz. The door behind him closed, leaving only the ceiling light illuminating the empty middle passage. Su Hao tapped with the heel of his shoe. Tap. Tap. Yan's figure appeared behind him. Su Hao reached out and pressed the switch on the door. Instantly, hum, hum, hum. The door of the special material slowly opened. There was only darkness inside. A gust of cold wind blew, and two ghost shadows emerged from the gap between the door that had just opened. Tisk, tisk, tisk. The two nightmare terrors, which had just let out a strange laugh as they thought that they were about to escape, suddenly froze. Their bodies trembled as they floated down, as if they were kneeling before Su Hao. Of course, the one they submitted to was Yan, who was floating behind Su Hao. The Ghost King's aura was now much stronger compared to when it was still in the Ghost City. After passing the two ordinary nightmare terrors, Su Hao stepped into the gloomy room. Following behind him was a very quiet Fu in a white Gothic Lolita suit. It stretched out its finger and tapped with its fingertip. A white ball of light appeared and floated in mid-air, illuminating the space in the building. Phew phew. It called out, as if to say I've switched on the light. But in an instant, the light triggered a response, as if Su Hao had poked a hornet's nest. The sealed building suddenly became active, and countless ghost element sprites rushed out from every corner. Woo woo woo. Tisk, tisk, tisk. He 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 he. Ghost shadows floated around like black clouds. A cold aura drifted in the building, stirring up waves of cold wind. They were all afraid of the Yama Ghost King. They didn't rush up immediately, but they didn't submit immediately either. 4 extraordinary and 36 elite. It only cost Su Hao 20,000 credits. Since the demand for ghost catching was very high, Su Hao's prices also lowered over time. But in Su Hao's opinion, exchanging money for time was completely worth it. Even if I bring Yan to catch it myself, catching elite ghosts may not be difficult, but extraordinary ghost element. Well, knowing where to find them is also another problem. Back then, there were quite a lot of extraordinary ghost element sprites in Ghost City. However, Su Hao didn't see any extraordinary ghost element sprites until the gargoyle tribe attacked and woke up the powerful sprites. In terms of hiding, the majority of ghost element sprites were definitely experts. Of course, some of them weren't very good. It's actually a golden armored corpse. Su Hao was still surrounded by many nightmare terrors, but among them there was one in which its aura was the strongest. Like a king, it was surrounded by other ghost element sprites. It was a 2-meter tall, muscular zombie covered in a layer of golden luster. Golden armored corpse. It had the strength of an extraordinary high level. It was unknown which instructor brought it back. There were still some charred marks on the golden armored corpse, but its aura was still vigorous, with the aura of a king among corpses. It was not an entity to be trifled with. An hour later, under Yan's patient persuasion, ghost element sprites defected one after another. Only the golden armored corpse king continued to roar as it suddenly punched. Boom! The impact from the wind hit the wall, and the light of the barrier appeared. The whole building still trembled. Butterfly puffed up its face and prepared to use an illusion that it had long prepared. The crazy golden armored corpse king paused. Standing on the spot, the red light in his eyes flashed. Yama Ghost King leaped forward, its figure gradually becoming fainter. At the core of the illusion inside the golden armored corpse's mind space. The sky was gloomy, and a blood-colored round moon hung high in the sky. Under the blood moon were black mounds, with cold wind blowing and bones everywhere. A golden armored corpse king, about 3 to 4 meters tall and as strong as an explosion of muscles, with an even more terrifying aura, stood in the center of the mass grave, with its eyes closed and motionless. At this moment, countless emerald green dots appeared and gathered, forming a butterfly fairy that was 2 to 3 meters tall. In mid-air, black shadows gradually appeared. It was the Yama Ghost King in a black robe and a crown. The ground trembled. The blood moon in the sky glowed with an increasingly horrifying light. The golden armored corpse king standing at the center of the mass grave suddenly opened its closed eyes. Red light flashed faintly as it let out a furious roar. Roar. Chapter 304, Sealing Method. In the sealed building, seeing the Yama Ghost King disappear, ghost element sprites gradually became agitated again. As expected, sprite commandeering alone isn't going to last long. Perhaps it's because the current ghost sprite commandeering is still in its first stage, its power is still insufficient. But Su Hao had come prepared. Since persuasion didn't work, Su Hao would need to rely on spells. By using illusions as a bridge to enter the sprite's deep consciousness and mind space, Su Hao is able to convert the extraordinary ghost element sprite with Ayan's ghost sprite commandeering talent. The method to enter the deep mind space was also a secret manual that was unlocked from the interface. It was trustworthy, but it was Su Hao's first time using it. Su Hao used sprite commandeering, visual sharing on the real body of Ayan. Butterfly, on the other hand, was still lying on top of his head, its legs swaying. Inside the mind space, the blood moon hung high in the sky, and a cold wind blew. This was an illusion, but it was not being controlled by Butterfly, instead it was controlled by the golden armored corpse king. Only by defeating it here will the conversion happen. But the increase in size is too big. In reality, the golden armored corpse king's level was high, but not strong. The dazed crow and the dumb unicorn could still defeat it. It was just that it was very difficult to capture it alive with light injuries. However, in front of him was a golden armored corpse king 3 to 4 meters tall with a terrifying aura. Every move it made was very dramatic. What a cheat! How unfair! The golden armored corpse king roared and charged forward abruptly. Its body was like a heavy golden tank, but it also had the speed of a plane. In an instant, it appeared in front of Ayan and punched down. Boom! The dark ground exploded, and the shock wave created a deep ditch dozens of meters long before exploding in the distance. Shattered soil fell like rain. Su Hao's vision darkened. When he reappeared, he was already dozens of meters away from the golden armored corpse king. Ayan raised its hand and blasted out a shadow energy ball with a whoosh. It hit the golden armored corpse king and exploded. However, it was completely unharmed. Not even a scrap of skin was scratched out, and its body didn't shake either. It continued to roar and rush over. It was very hot-tempered. The attacks were ineffective, and there was no time to accumulate energy to use the ultimate super shadow energy ball, so Ayan simply kept dodging. The domineering air exuded by Ghost Sprite commandeering seemed to have become a taunt skill, firmly holding the golden armored corpse king back. Come! Come after me! If you catch me, I'll let you! Slap! In the contract, Ayan stretched out a hand and blocked Su Hao's voice. Feeling bored, he could only silently watch the fight from a first-person perspective. At the same time, relying on its ability to change between illusions, Butterfly's clone that appeared in the illusion silently approached the blood moon in the sky. In fact, the blood moon was just a big red ball of light hanging hundreds of meters in the sky. Butterfly circled the blood moon twice and floated to the side. With its chin in its hand, its legs curled up slightly, as if it was sitting on a crescent moon and thinking. After a while, the bright yellow hair on its forehead suddenly stood up, and its whole body bounced up. It turned into a stream of light and flew, stretching out its fair fingers and pointed downwards. Ripples appeared in space. On the ground, the terrifying golden armored corpse king suddenly stopped and let out a deafening roar. But the roars gradually weakened, and the 3 to 4 meters tall and explosive body gradually returned to its original appearance, similar to its size in the outside world. Ayan stopped. Naturally, Ayan was angry after being chased for so long. In the sky, the butterfly floated down. With a light tap of its finger, giant cannons started to appear. Energy gathered at the muzzles of the cannons, shooting out dazzling light. Boom! 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 After the mental space shook a few times, it returned to calm. At this moment, in the space that looked like a mass grave, the ground had already sunk several meters. There were holes of varying depths everywhere. The golden armored corpse king was half kneeling in the pit, covered in wounds and in a sorry state. Ayan started to use ghost confusing technique, which lasted for half an hour. Crack! The mental space shattered. In the sealed building, Ayan's figure appeared again. At this moment, the golden armored corpse, which had stood frozen on the spot for a long time, seemed to have awakened from a deep sleep. The red light in its eyes shot out, but it was no longer crazy. Instead, he knelt on one knee to show his submission. Whoosh whoosh! Ayan pointed at Su Hao, indicating that this was the master. But the owner of one's owner was not a real owner. The golden armored corpse was still only facing Ayan. It was a little anxious. Huff huff. I know, it's all right. Huff huff. Ayan, who insisted on changing little ghost's mind, kept gesturing until it flew behind Su Hao and merged into his shadow. No problem. Half a day later, all the ghost element sprites were successfully converted. Among the 4 extraordinary level sprites, apart from the strongest golden armored corpse, there were 2 nightmare terrors and 1 gauntlet bird. The other elite levels also came from these 3 races. Together, they could form a ferocious ghost chorus. Ayan's ghost sprite commandeering talent had also been cultivated to the 2nd stage forceful command. It could temporarily and forcefully command ghost element sprites. The specific effects were determined by the target. With the characteristics of Shadow Lord and Sprite Commandeering, Su Hao felt that Ayan might as well be called the nemesis of Ghost Element instead. The ferocious Ghost Group has been founded. But in real battles, it can't just charge in blindly. It needs to take advantage of the power of all the different Ghost Element sprites. The first step requires Ayan to cultivate Ghost Sprite Commandeering to the 3rd stage. At that time, it can act as the center and gather the ghostly shadow energy of its ghost minions. It can also treat its ghost minions as a power bank to replenish its energy. The second step is to develop the corresponding secret manuals. Su Hao already had a plan. One of them will be a joint attack tactic. When Ayan uses the ultimate super shadow energy ball, it can get the ghost element sprites to help shorten the time. Another one of them will be a ceiling battle tactics. The principle is similar to joint attack tactics. Ayan would escape with Gan Kun in the shadow and would use the other ghost element sprites to stall for time. Su Hao glanced at the interface. The relevant secret manuals had already appeared on the interface. Secret Manual, Sealed Battle Technique, unlock with 10-15 intelligence points. But the third tactical system, the 100 Ghosts Night Feast, was probably a little lacking. It didn't receive the approval of the interface. In addition, these wild sprites themselves don't have much potential, so it's impossible for me to invest much resources on them. Su Hao currently had an immature idea. Why not let the ghost minions work? He could build a haunted house in school and place the ghost element sprites such as the golden armored corpse in the haunted house for the students to train and earn money. The ghost minions would work at the haunted house during regular days, and on resting days, they could go out with Yama Ghost King. The money earned will be exchanged for nutritional supplements. Thinking about it carefully, the feasibility was rather high, and the income would not be low. He was probably the only sprite trainer who could control a team of ferocious ghosts. I'll ask Senior Wu tomorrow. As for now, he looked at Ayan. You are also very familiar with the structure of the nightmare terrors and the others. You should learn to construct your own ghost shadow incarnation. Chapter 305, The Final Sprint. Ghost Shadow Incarnation was a secret manual that Su Hao came up with when he wasn't sure whether Ayan could completely control the ghost minions. Unlike a clone, the incarnation could exist for a long time. It was an extension of the solidified armament. The fundamental theory came from Butterfly's spiritual orb-splitting movement technique. In the League, Butterfly could rely on the perfectly controlled clones constructed by the spiritual orb to cover a large area a few kilometers or more and share perception as well as information. Apart from having limited energy and weaker combat abilities, there was basically no difference between the clone and the main body. Sprites skilled in sensing couldn't be able to sense anything wrong either. Ayan's ghost orb needs to use a shadow elemental crystal as the core. I also need to throw away its amplification and diverse applications, and only use it as the core of the incarnation. Then, I will construct an incarnation with its core and base it on the structure of the Nightmare Terror's body. Su Hao glanced at the Nightmare Terror floating beside him. Its appearance was a human-shaped black mist, opening its ferocious mouth. Slap! When Ayan saw that little ghost was being disrespectful to its master again, it immediately slapped it. The Nightmare Terror became controlled and aggrieved. Su Hao continued to think. The black mist that the Nightmare Terror showed was fake. In essence, it was a ball of half-truth core. It had similarities to Ghost Shadow Incarnation, which was easy to imitate. It was because Su Hao had thought of the Nightmare Terror that the secret manual was able to appear on the interface. If it was modeled with the bird-captured bird and golden armored corpse as a reference, then, At this moment, in Ayan's hand, it held a ghost orb that had already been modified. It threw it forward, and the black orb, the size of a fist, with some light in its blackness, flew out and hovered a few meters away. Around the pearl, strands of shadow energy spread out and interweaved, forming wisps of black smoke. Ayan had already closed its eyes and focused on comprehending. Ayan had a very high level of shadow control, an overpowered level 1 shadow type learning talent, and, most importantly, Su Hao's guidance, as well as sufficient preparations in the early stage. In just 20 minutes, the black smoke interweaving around the ghost orb increased. Finally, there weren't any special changes, but it made people feel that the black smoke in front of them had all come together. When the core moved, the black smoke that shrouded the outside also moved. There is also a faint aura. In theory, the incarnation is already done, right? The black smoke in front of Su Hao was still a little sparse. It didn't look like a Nightmare Terror either. It wasn't behaving unpredictably and also did not have a scary appearance. It only seemed like a core that was attached to a black mosaic-like body. When it moved, the black smoke still lagged behind. Maybe, just maybe, there's still a slight problem. At the end of November, Whale Island University's haunted house officially opened. Ghost element sprites appeared and disappeared unpredictably, and were also good at illusion-type attacks. The moment they appeared, they attracted the students' attention. It was marketed as the best place for training illusion resistance in the entire Whale City University. In just a month or two, the haunted house became a popular tourist attraction in the campus, second only to Skyfall and Mirror Forest, which were popular popular cultivation venue. The wild ghosts also lived very happily between play and work. It was just that. After a few tries, the Golden Armored Corpse King and a few elite-level Golden Armored Corpse Kings proved to be too eye-catching. They couldn't walk through walls and couldn't adapt to the work at the haunted house, so they were fired. They could only find other jobs and rely on selling their bodies and strength to maintain their livelihood. During this period, Su Hao mainly focused on training the Eternal Night Glory concubine. He was also looking for a suitable sparring partner for Efu. For example, he had already made Efu battle Li Songting's Master Hound and Bai's Extreme Earth Nine Tails. Bai Hongzhen, I originally wanted to reject him, but he offered too many credits for me to turn the deal down. Seduced by the credits, the seniors of the special training camp agreed one after another. They all took out trump cards that were also top level among elite level, limit level, and allowed them to fight with the Eternal Night Glory concubine. Every ace sprite had its own unique skills, such as the Master Hound's Muscle Mode, the Extreme Nine Tails Ice Mirror Tactics, and so on, which benefited the Eternal Night Glory concubine greatly. But the benefits were probably also partially due to the more thorough integration after evolution. By now, Eternal Night Glory Concubine had participated in many battles and had gained a lot of battle experience. When it wasn't battling other sprites, Effa spent its time quietly reading books to learn and train its support-type unique skills. It was constantly alternating between battling and reading, as though it had 48 hours to spend in a day. Its improvement was naturally fast. At the Flame Sect Dojo. Underground, in the Tinder Cave. The air distorted as heat waves surged. Flames of various colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, were stored in the depths of the fire cave, emitting a heart-palpitating energy. The dazed crow stood in front of a cluster of bright golden flames. After standing there in a daze for a while, it finally stretched out its wings slowly and touched the cluster of bright golden flames. Instantly, the small flame seemed to have been poured with hot oil. With a boom, it burst into a huge golden ball of fire, completely enveloping the dazed crow. Amidst the terrifying golden flames, the shadow of the dazed crow could still be seen. It stood upright like a sharp sword, radiating with brightness. After a while, the golden ball of fire shrank with a whoosh, and was swallowed into the stomach of dazed crow, letting out a loud cry. Squawk! It echoed in the entire underground fire cave. In the lightning element dojo of the Thunder Cliff. Boom! Under the dark sky, dazzling lightning smashed onto the sharp thunder stones. Countless thunder arcs jumped, and in an instant, the surroundings became a sea of thunder. After putting on the Thunder God battlesuit, Big Fat Bear stood in the sea of lightning and allowed the thunder arcs to dance. Crack! Bang! Another thick lightning pillar blasted down, but it didn't hit the thunder stones, but directly hit the Big Fat Bear. In the bath of lightning, the battle armor changed with caw-caw sounds. The bear pressed its palms together and burst out a terrifying lightning cannon, leaving dazzling blue-purple arcs in the sky. Howl! It called, and as it called, it was about to cry. Bear missed its mobile games. At the Weather Dojo. On the opposite side, in the spirit summoning world. In the vast wilderness. Neha! The hoof of the dumb unicorn was raised high. In the endless blue sky, suddenly, water vapor filled the air and gathered into a cloud. In an instant, densely packed bean-sized raindrops fell noisily. In an instant, the sunny day turned into a thunderstorm. Amidst the pouring rain, a beast with lion head, antlers, dragon scales, horse hooves appeared. It was vivid and lifelike, and was dozens of times larger than the dumb unicorn as it poked its heads out of the rain. In an instant, the wind and clouds swept across. Terrifying might spread, and many wild sprites in the wilderness trembled. The cloud rain Kylan was like a huge mirage under the rain. Half of its body peeked out of the clouds and lasted for 20 to 30 seconds. Finally, Neha! It neighed, and the huge hoof of the cloud rain Kylan stepped down heavily. Amidst the rumbling, the world fell silent. After a while, the cheerful cries of dumb unicorn rang out, and it started running around the huge pit. Dazed crow, dumb unicorn, and Big Fat Bear's conditions could be seen on the interface every day. Su Hao could tell if they were being serious or lazy. He could also tell if they improved a lot, or only a little. He knew what they were lacking. All of them were improving in their own ways. Ayan kept perfecting the secret manual. Effa became stronger day by day in learning and fighting. Butterfly, on the other hand, it played games, watched cartoons, and started classes to earn money. On the surface, it didn't do proper work, but its improvement was only known to itself and Su Hao, who occasionally glanced at the interface. Sprite trainers who were determined to get a good ranking in the Supernova Cup were all training hard. Special training, resource exchange, wilderness training. Everyone was working hard, everyone was improving. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the Supernova Cup to begin.